and welcome to Connect to Love here on PRN-FM, where each episode is a journey of discovery into the many facets of our connection to love, oneness, and the human spirit. I'm Lisa LeRose, and I'm joined by the most incredible co-host, Michael J. Russ, and we are so grateful you are here with us because each week we explore different topics, and in our last episode we explored the idea that we are not here to simply give love or to get love, but that we are here to be the source of love. And that conversation opened up such a beautiful doorway because it invites a deeper question. How is it that when we have challenges in our lives, we stay rooted? When life doesn't feel easy, how do we remain open-hearted when oftentimes our future feels uncertain? And how do we become that source of love when we're standing in the middle of grief or change or transition or not knowing? When there's always seems like there's something. That's one of the things that's constant in life is change. So today I thought it would be fun to explore exactly that, and I spoke with Michael shortly before the show, and he agreed. And I'm so grateful, Michael, because you're always willing to play in this realm with me. And there is a wonderful book in my library entitled Soul Waves by Nikki Banas that I just happened to pick up this morning, and I opened up the book to a beautiful reflection, and every time I opened up the book for the rest of the day, I opened it up to the same passage. So I thought, there's a message in here for me. So I just wanted to take a minute to share it with you because it has such beautiful imagery in it, and it really feels like medicine to my heart right now. She wrote, "Allow yourself to move like the ocean waves through change. Life is meant to be lived. It does not need to be fully understood or figured out to be enjoyed. So allow yourself to live it fully and deeply, even when you do not understand it all, especially when you do not understand it all. Trust that you are on your divine path, and this moment is a stepping stone in your path towards your greater self. Ride the waves as they come, just one at a time. Embrace each wave with love, openness, and grace for all that it brings you." And I really love the message in those words because maybe the goal isn't to stop life from changing. Maybe the invitation is to learn how to move with it. I love the idea of riding those waves and being able to realize that when change comes in those waves that rise and fall, we don't need to abandon ourselves or close our hearts or forget the love that anchors us. We can still be that source of love. So I would love, 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 love to hear your thoughts about this, Michael. It is something fun to explore.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here again, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I'll tell you what. Something that came to mind when you were actually reading the Nikki Banas quote, that message she had, which is so lovely about riding the waves, is that life does not need to be feared. We have a tendency to fear the unknown, fear any change that comes up, and it's almost as if we again from childhood are conditioned to see change as being fearful. Maybe because I don't know. Maybe some parents would say stay where you are because if you go over there, you don't know what's there, and it may not be good for you. And if they keep saying that over and over again, you're gonna be conditioned to fear moving left when you've always moved right, or having to move left when you're forced to move left, and your parents just say no, always go right. And it's one of those things, but I love the idea of this of the waves because I would refer to it as the ebb and flow of life. The ebb and flow of life. In Nikki Banas' case, it's an analogy about waves and how those waves, how you have to get up on those waves and just ride them, just have fun riding them instead of fighting against them. Almost like trying to fight the waves, trying to move out, going against waves to go out into the ocean, instead of simply riding the waves back in. right? Find a way to go out and come back in the same manner, in a fun manner. And I think it's a matter of, I'm big on perception, because in my view that is really huge. And another thing that came to mind when you were speaking that wonderful message from Nikki Banas is that our ego wants to judge. Our ego wants to judge. It wants to judge everything. It wants to judge things as being bad for us. Don't do that thing. It could be something spooky in there. It could be something, you might misstep or make a mistake, or you might fail. Don't do that. Don't take that risk. You want to stay safe. You want to stay here. You don't really want to change, do you? This is the messages that we keep getting. These are the messages we keep getting from ourselves and from our ego, who really just doesn't want us to move. It wants us to stay in our little comfort zone. Unfortunately, that's not the way life works. Life is an ever-evolving, transformative journey. And along that journey, in my view, you have to be malleable. You have to be able to be flexible, be agile in how you deal with the day's events. And love is being a source of love, as we talked about in our last show, very much involves also making choices in your life that are aligned with you being a source of love. And that means that, obviously things aren't always going to go the way that you think they should go. They're not always going to go what you quote unquote think is smoothly, right? You have a perception of how you believe something ought to go, and if it doesn't go that way, the question is, how do you react, or how do you respond to that? That's really the case, because we can take for granted that nothing is going to go smoothly, because smoothly doesn't exist. It's something we make up in order to be comfortable with making the move, right? We say, it's going to go smoothly. We convince ourselves that that's going to happen. And unfortunately, we also have to expect that there will be some changes involved that are way beyond our ability to control. And so how do we deal with that? And it's how we deal with that. It's how we deal with that determines whether or not we still have this still remain a source of love. That's the conundrum. That's the conundrum everybody has to deal with. It's always that what happens and how I respond to it. And we can choose to remain in love as we are responding. That can be our choice. We simply say, listen, fear doesn't exist. I'm simply going to go with the ebb and flow of whatever happens today. When you get up in the morning, you say, I'm going with the ebb and flow of what happens today, and I'm going to remain in a space of love, right? Things go off the rails, so to speak. That's a perception even. That kind of terminology is ingrained in our society when things go wrong, when things happen that we don't really like, when we don't expect these things, that happens, it goes opposite of the way I thought it was going to go. We can choose, love. Let's go with this and see what happens. Let's go with it. That left turn that I was supposed to make that I didn't make, and I'm making the next one. I wonder why I did that. I wonder why. Let's go check that out. Let's pay attention and remain aware of where I am instead of thinking about what I didn't do that I was supposed to do and beating myself up in the process, complaining about where I should have been. Let's bring our awareness to where I am now in this moment. And you go, wait a minute. There's a record store I didn't know was there. My gosh, I didn't come in. Wait a minute, there's a restaurant, too, that I would love to try. I've been looking for one like that. So there we go. You all of a sudden, when that happens, you fall right back into a frame, a space of love. You forget all about what happened, that you made the wrong turn. And the quicker you can get to that point, the more you will continue to be a source of love.
So true and so beautiful, Michael. I absolutely love it. There were so many things in what you said, and I really love the idea, because so many people fear change. Maybe it's unconscious that they fear it. And I think that oftentimes change can feel like evidence that something is wrong. But as you said, if you find a restaurant, it's often evidence that something is moving in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't help but think of that movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, mm-hmm. because every day when he woke up, he found himself living the same day over and over and over again. He was the only person in his world that knew that this was happening. And he went through all kinds of different periods. He went through dismay and despair and revolt and destruction and even recklessness. But then something interesting happened. He began learning. He learned by watching all the different people that came into his life. And it got to the point where he got a little bit bored with it, and he started to utilize that as an opportunity to change himself. He wasn't really well liked by people, and mm-hmm. he was a little bit of a challenging person, but he started to learn skills, and he learned how to be charming and funny and witty. And even though he knew he'd wake up and the alarm would go off, it would be the same day, he was still evolving. And I think that life is happening like that. It happens in those waves. And mm-hmm. it's not just one wave. It's not like this huge tidal wave that comes in and wipes out everything on the shore. If you live near the ocean, and you can even see it on a lake, you watch the lapping of the waves come in. And mm-hmm. sometimes if there's a storm brewing out at sea, then the waves tend to be a lot higher and the ocean is choppier. But even if the storm comes, eventually there's always a calm. And it is. If there are things that I think skills that we can learn about how to find that peace, and I think being that source of love is that peace that can carry us through the storm. And if and you look out at the ocean and the tides, there's high tide, low tide. It's ever evolving, and that's really the beauty of life. There is a rhythm. Life moves in this rhythm. Then something greater is evolving. And I've always loved Wayne Dyer. He always said, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And change itself, I don't think, is the problem. It's our relationship to it that is. And being able to be anchored in that source of love and just say, okay, this is not a disruption. I am going to, like Bill Murray did, I'm going to learn how to be a better version of myself, or I'm going to learn how to share more kindness, or see this as an opportunity to send out love, even in the uncertainty. And what I send out, I know is going to come back, just like that lapping of the waves along the shore.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. Your Groundhog Day reference is absolutely spot on. And I just want to take that up just a little bit further. Because
please, I'm excited.
A lot of people, this is interesting because this is the way life works with a lot of people. This is where your ego will jump in and want to judge one thing or another. But you mentioned the movie Groundhog Day to somebody. Let's say you go to their house and they go, "Oh, we got Groundhog Day queued up. We're ready to roll with it." And you say, "Groundhog Day? Oh, I heard that movie was terrible." Number one, someone gave you a thought virus that told you the movie was bad because they didn't really see the message in the movie. They saw just the window dressing, right? But what we do is we have a tendency to downplay and become negative, left the opposite of loving, to something that could benefit us. So you go to a friend's house, they got the movie queued up, they're ready to roll with it, and you're like fighting it because you don't want to see Groundhog Day. So all you'll see is, I hate Bill Murray, I don't like movies, I don't like groundhogs, I don't like the concept of ground. You think of all these things, right? I don't like the concept of Groundhog Day, or, I don't like the little small towns. I don't even like Pennsylvania, okay? So let's just say that nothing in this movie is to my liking, right? Yet you sit down, you're forced to watch it. You either have to eat your words or leave. So let's say you decide to stay, and this is human nature. And the question then becomes, Are you going to be able to, with all that negativity going into the movie that you've generated, the opposite of love, let's say, are you going to be able to see this message? Or are you going to continue to see, oh, that's so stupid. Oh, that's just ridiculous. Why would that happen? Who would make a movie like this, about this, the story? But yet, the interesting thing about the movie is if you get rid of all that torrent of negative feelings and emotions, and just literally accept that this is happening, and you just watch and lose the judgment, at some point during the movie, like just about everyone who watches this movie, you discover that there's a transformation within the main character. Within the main character. That main character goes from being the worst guy, the guy who's egotistically driven, greed-driven, narcissistically driven, to now he's, wait a minute, hold on a second. I've got this opportunity here now. And it takes a while, okay, for that to occur. However, it does occur. And now we get to see what happens when he chooses to actively be a participant, a positive participant in his own life. This recurring day that happens over and over and over again. And it's so beautiful to see how he comes out of it at the end. I don't want to ruin it for people, but how he comes out of it at the end. The personal transformation that is undertaken. Now, I know you and I approach movies from a perspective of looking for that transformative point in the movie, that transformational story. I look for that, and I love it. I love seeing how it's going, and I can tell pretty much from the title or the description or whatever that it's going to be that kind of movie, and they allude to it in the description of the movie and perhaps the trailer. But the beauty is seeing how of those types of movies is how you can actually see how human nature works, and we all can learn from it. We can learn not to fight the waters, but to go with the waves. In watching this kind of movie, they're very, in my view, educational, enlightening. Let's put it that way. They can be that way if you see them that way, but you got to choose it. You got to choose it. And I find people all the time. I do come across people that are fighting this and that. And I just say, just go with it. Just go with it. Stop with all the perceptions of negative perceptions and the opposite of love with the comments and all of that. You're coming at this movie from one angle. The angle you're coming from is egoic and very negatively driven, which is going to actually possibly keep you from getting it, from getting the simplicity of the message here. And so that's how human nature works. And I swear to you, everybody who's listening to the show has experienced this with a friend or a family member about something that they particularly wanted to do. This is the kind of challenge when a bunch of family comes together and everybody's got to figure out what they're going to do together, and everybody's got a different idea about what they want to do, and there's going to be pushback, right? Pushback. And so there is a reason. Just see it, go with it. Pick something that you're unfamiliar with, that is completely unknown to you, and see where it takes you. And do it with love. Smile on your face, and it will be a wonderful experience if you let it happen.
I love that, Michael, and I'm so grateful that you brought that up, because oftentimes I have been in situations where the plans may change, and it really upsets the apple cart for some people. They're not able to transition and say, okay, well, this happened for a reason. Their whole evening or their day is ruined. And instead of getting stuck on that point, they don't really look, well, there are so many other opportunities that could happen, and be open. I mean, sometimes we feel like, oh, this is going to be the perfect day. And then you'll have, as you said, a flat tire or something else. But when not everything is flowing the way that you want, it is a trick not to be overwhelmed or to feel yourself get into that emotional point or be so disappointed that you wreck it for everybody else. And I think that that's how we bring ourselves back and anchor in. So how do you be that source of love in times of change? And it's not meaning that you have to pretend that everything is fine. And sometimes it's just staying open to, I've never surfed, but, riding that next wave. Like, okay, you know what, this one, it isn't going to be the big ride of my life, but okay, let's see what this other one, and really being open to whatever is meant to unfold. I think that I can't, it's funny, I've never come up with anybody who didn't enjoy that movie when you said that. But there are other movies that I have been where people have just totally shut down rather than be open to it. And maybe it's because they see themselves in that character and they don't know how to navigate beyond that. Mm-hmm. Right.
It could be, it could be too close to home. But you said something it initially in this conversation in your message here that my heart was set on. My heart is set on. And this is, I've heard this is sort of a preface to somebody telling you that they had their heart set on this thing, and now that thing's not happening, right? And it's really they've bought into the idea of the thing that couldn't happen. They bought into it beforehand, and now because they've bought into it, their mind is saying we can't. We must have that thing. We can't accept that our heart could like something different than that, because they're choosing not to move their heart to something different or be open their heart to something new, right? Because this is literally one of those situations where people just force themselves not to see what is right in front of them, which is they had their heart set on this. That's not going to occur. Now we ask ourselves, okay, that's not happening. I wonder why that's not happening. What else is there that my heart is supposed to be focused on? If not that, what? That question that you ask yourself is not ripe with anger or frustration or worry. It's ripe with opportunity. That's what it's ripe with. When you simply say, I wonder why this happened. I wonder what's over there for me. If the universe doesn't want me to go here, another door is opened up. Let's go to that door and see what happens. Right? And invariably, you walk through that other door and you're like, gosh, I'm glad I did that. I had so much fun. I want to do that again. That is really kind of what happens. You say, you go to a movie and the movie's sold out, but I had my heart set on that movie. Well, here's another movie that's not sold out. Let's be open to that. Let's see what happens. And you go to that other movie and you go, gosh, this is really great. This is a wonderful movie. I loved it. I just loved the story. Never heard about it. Never heard of the movie. Didn't get any advertising. But that movie was even more special than the one you had your heart set on. Turned out to be, right? And that is how we continue to manifest and carry and resonate and become or be a source of love to the universe, to others in the universe. That's how we do it. That's how we maintain our source of love, by being able to bounce from one thing to another without judgment, without becoming upset, without being fearful, without being worried or angry about something that we had our heart set on. Your heart can move. You can direct your heart in any direction you want. Doesn't have to be that one. Could be something different. Just see what happens. And now listen. You had to do this. You were talking about your story about when you were coming back from Europe, how you had your heart set on taking a particular flight, but that flight didn't happen. And so the question is, what do you do next? And you did something next, but they still didn't have you, right? They just still didn't have you down on that next flight, and you had to jump through a few hoops. And the question is whether you remain a source of love depends upon the decision making that you make about how to approach the challenges that occur in your life in any given moment. And if you choose, you always choose love. Choose to be kind. And that always gets you so much farther. I've had people offer, I was waiting for a flight in L.A., Southwest. It wasn't Southwest. It was, I forgot the airline. It was flying back up. They had first class. And I was waiting in the LAX airport to get back to Sacramento. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. And this was the last flight back. And I was so nice. I was very nice to the guy. I was very patient. I said, if I can go back to my sister's and go hang out, but I'd really love to get out on this flight if I possibly could. The guy comes up to me at the very end, just before they close the doors, and he says, "We got one first class seat. Would you like it?" And I'm going, "Yeah, sure."
That's awesome. That's
I
great.
mean, now if I had been a pain in his rumpus, guess what? He's not going to think twice about giving me that seat. Right?
Absolutely.
And I know this guy's getting beat up in 18 different directions by people who want to be on that flight. Right? And so it's wonderful. I always say, you catch more bees than honey, right? Or sugar can get you a whole lot farther, than the opposite, right? Than something tart. So it's a wonderful life if you choose to see it that way. And being a source of love is a matter of a little bit of work on your part. It does take a little bit of effort because you have to remain in that state and make choices and decisions in a new way, because we're not trained to make decisions from love and from being a source of love or maintaining ourselves as a source of love. That's not what we're taught. We're taught that you have to grind through it. You have to fight. You have to struggle to get what you want. And really, that's only going to get you more fighting and struggling, more pushback. We know that now, energetically, that's the way it works, and we're getting messages from every corner of the world, from every channel, from everybody in the metaphysical world that, okay, now that doesn't work anymore. That whole day planner got to happen at 2 o'clock thing, or we're going to miss the 3:30. That kind of thing, that's not the way the world works anymore. And I heard the other day that the next step in time is that the concept of time will disappear altogether. Isn't that going to be interesting? What's that going to be like? That sounds fun, right? And to some people, it's not going to be fun because there's some people who operate minute to minute, moment to moment. They have to have a full schedule, and they have to know what that schedule is, and they have to operate according to that schedule in order to achieve some sort of something, some goal, some sort of achievement has to be obtained from it. What about the simple sense of satisfaction from actually going through your day?
Right.
The satisfaction moment to moment. We have to appreciate it's not the end of the day satisfaction. If everything goes all according to plan, I'm going to be satisfied. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to love my life. We start making those kinds of decisions based on perceptions of perfection, and what happens? What happens is invariably you're going to end up disappointed because the universe and your soul's mission often don't correlate to exactly that little thing you put on a piece of paper.
Yep.
You don't know. You don't know what you're here to learn. You don't know who you're supposed to meet that can help you move to this place or that place, or to move closer to your authentic self, or your mission that your soul is here to see through. You just don't know it.
Oh, true.
It's much more fun the other way. Much more fun not
both
to have.
You and I enjoy Abraham Hicks, and one of my favorite all-time Abraham Hicks, I can't tell you how many people I've sent it to, is when Abraham speaks about paddling upstream. And just, it's like, and you think about that metaphor, you're paddling, and if you just allow the boat to turn around and go, it goes very easily and effortlessly. And Abraham said something that just always made me laugh, that change is the only constant, and resistance to change is the only source of suffering. And they refer to it as the river of well-being, and Abraham says it's always flowing. But when we panic, we fall out of the boat. And I think about, like, when I've gone whitewater rafting, and, you're paddling, and it sounds so funny because you'll see this rapid come up towards you, and you've got to paddle into the rapid to be able to navigate it so that you can go to the smoother part of the stream. And I think that's a lot of the way that life is. We don't know what's coming next, but we can still be kind to ourselves and others. And when you were in that airport situation, I'm sure you had a big smile and you had softened your voice and you just were very compassionate to what that gentleman was going through. And, we don't always have to understand what's going on in the moment, but it's how we approach it. We can meet things very gently and softly. It doesn't have to be this big, huge, cavalcade of emotions that pour forth, because I think a lot of times you'll see individuals, and that's exactly, they get agitated, and it becomes like this tiny little whirlwind that becomes this big, huge cyclone before you know it. And I think that when we just allow and we trust, and I think that that's sort of the thing that I appreciated about what Nikki said, that when we ride the waves as they come, just one at a time, and embrace each wave with love, that openness and grace for all the things it brings you. And I think it's just such a powerful metaphor, because those waves, whether you're on the ocean or you're on a river, you're not the rapids. You're not asking to control them. You're learning how to move with them. And I think that that's what a lot of being the source of love is. We may not know the exact way to navigate in a situation with somebody, but we just have to trust that when we open our ears and open our hearts and open our eyes, we listen to what somebody else's needs are, then it allows us to sort of navigate through those little bits of time. And even if we just allow ourselves to take a breath, to breathe it in, and just allow yourself that moment to pause and then drop into your heart and ask what love would do. All of those things can really, really make a difference. I think that it all helps us to sort of navigate whatever waves come in. We cannot control it, but we cannot stop those waves, no matter how much we want a nice, peaceful evening. But we can decide, how am I going to approach it? I'm not going to fight it, as you said. I'm not going to fear it. I can learn to move through it. And I think the biggest way to do that is through love. And that's through kindness and compassion. And your beautiful smile, Michael, I'm sure that really brought a sense of just a sigh of relief to that gentleman. And you were like, okay, not a problem. Whatever you need to do, I'm okay with it. And he doesn't hear that very often. And I'm sure in a lot of situations people don't hear that very often. I'm sure you appreciate it, which is why that doorway, allowing that yourself to be that source of love, opened up that doorway to you.
I agree 110%. It's amazing. I have one theory when it comes to of action. Actually, one perception, I should say, that I come into customer service with whenever I have to deal with somebody who's in customer service, and that is to be the opposite of what they expect, the complete and total opposite. That's really the way that things work out best, because customer service people have an expectation that you're going to be upset. They're trained to deal with de-escalation. So I throw them off track. I don't need de-escalating. It could have been the worst thing that happened. Look, this thing, it happened. I got a case of wine and 4 bottles were broken and wine is dripping everywhere, blah, 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 blah. On a hot day, whatever. And this has happened. This has actually happened. And, it's kind of like, listen, okay, it's good. Just give me these things. It's not the driver's fault. The driver's simply the messenger. So I take the wine and I make a phone call to the company that shipped it, and I simply say, I think you're gonna have a claim to file. I got 4 bottles that weren't that broke, but I've got the other 6. Let me tell you which ones did break. And they go, great, okay, fantastic. Listen, they say simply, we'll include those with our next shipment, or we'll get those right out to you. Hey, listen, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for taking care of this. It's simple. It's not rocket science. We have this reaction sometimes. So that's the first perception that I actually maintain throughout any customer service experience. I don't care whether I'm in an airport and there's 100 people behind me in line. I'm leaving LA after seeing my mother, and I'm taking a flight early morning so I can get home and get some work done. And I'm at the airport I think it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm at the airport at LAX, one of the busiest airports in the country. And I'm told as I'm about to board the plane in my first class seat, I am told that somebody bumped into the plane. That's what I said.
Oh my goodness.
Guy makes an announcement. We're getting ready to board the plane, right? We're getting ready to board, and someone says, somebody bumped into the plane, and now that plane can't fly until it's been inspected. Somebody on the tarmac was driving by and kind of grazed the plane with something. But literally, legally, they cannot fly if something has impacted the plane. It doesn't matter whether you can see it or not. And so he says, we have to bring another plane, and I'm going to miss a connection in Atlanta. And so I was literally at the counter. What's the next option that I have? What's the possibility? He says, well, I'll get you a seat on this flight over here. The flight at the next gate over was leaving, right? Going to, I don't know, somewhere else that was going to get me close to where I was going to be, and I would be able to get home maybe within an hour of the time. And I just simply, give it to me. I said, I don't have time to think about where the seat is, I don't care. Just give it to me. And I literally walked from that desk to the next gate desk and walked onto the plane. That's how close it was in terms of if I sat there and argued with them and I give all this other, it's like, but there were only so many seats on that flight because the way that the algorithms work, all these flights are booked. They don't have empty seats on planes anymore. That's a thing of the past with their their capacity algorithms and all that. They know which plane to bring in. They know how many. They know everything. So that's how they're able to save money and make more money. They don't bring a plane that holds 300 people for 100 people. That kind of mistake can cost them a lot in fuel and everything else. So these are the little things. You get through life. You get through the unexpected. By my second perception, I am right where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I am always where I'm supposed to be. That perception can take you a long way.
Yep, that's so powerful, Michael. And I love that metaphor of just being able to be so able to kind of go with the flow, and the next best thing was right there. It was right there waiting for you. Because I think so many times when there's a change, and this is why I don't plan out my life, because when we have something like that, it appears to be an obstacle, but really it was just another doorway. It was a different experience. And when we have change, it doesn't mean that we're off our path, because so many people question, like, oh no, now this is going to set me back and XYZ is going to happen and I'm totally off my path. And then you start questioning, did I make the wrong decision? What happens? Is this going to work? What is going to look different on this path? But you just have to go back to that trust. And like Nikki said in that quote, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing of it, that trust that you're on your divine path, and that all of these little things are just a stepping stone. So you being rerouted to a different plane, there may have been somebody that you had a conversation with that really what you shared with them changed their life in ways that you have no idea. But there was something that you said that was the greatest gift for them at that time, and they were just listening to you. Louise Hay used to always say, everything is working out for my highest good. We are not, when we say things like that, we're not bypassing and not acknowledging that this challenge existed. But you're choosing to only make it temporary. It's just a moment in time. It is not the permanent story. And it's how we react, and it's that trust. You just knew that it would all work out. Whether you got on that flight or not, it would just be a different experience. But I can't tell you, the last few days, I have had small delays, but I have avoided very big car accidents that have happened. And I thought to myself, as I'm looking at the fire trucks and the ambulance and saying prayers for the people that were involved in these accidents, I thought, if I had been not delayed, that could have been me.
Yeah,
and I'm very grateful that it wasn't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's your angels. That's
Absolutely.
your angels working for you. That's your guides making sure that, she's got a lot of work to do on this planet, a lot of good things to do with people, to help people. And this is not one of those situations that's gonna cut that short. And I don't know. People ask me if I have a fear of death, which is the number one fear in the world, evidently, is a fear of dying. And I said, no, I don't. I don't have that fear at all, because I know whatever time or whatever way it is or whatever, I have control over that. A conscious control. I might have had, my soul might know what's going on. I don't, and that's not how I live. But to live every day in fear or make decisions based on a fear of whether or not it would shorten your life or not. I mean, I can understand things like, I'm really not interested in bungee jumping off a bridge. I don't want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. That's not really, I don't have a preference for that. And I don't want to drive down the middle of a freeway at 120, 30 miles an hour. That's not something that I have any interest in doing. Mm-hmm. My preferences lie elsewhere. So there are other people who feel that they have to do those things to feel alive. And my question to them is, why? You don't feel alive as you are right now? Mm-hmm. It's like, what are you doing in the rest of your life, right? That you have to do something completely off. And maybe that's just, I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just discerning that maybe that might be a little more elevated in terms of risk. And you've said, okay, lovingly, I can take that risk. And that's fine. That's your decision. That's your choice. And it'll likely work out exactly as you plan and have the most stellar experience in life, and you will feel alive. But when you get back to the ground, you're also going to have to, approach life from that same perspective. Wouldn't that be amazing? Mm-hmm. That there are some people who don't feel alive unless they're doing something like that. They're just, doing something that's high risk with regard to that. And that's fine. I'm not here to judge people. I'm here to say, it's everybody does what they do. As long as you're a source of love while you're doing it, that it really doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing it from love, as a source of love, that's what counts. And mm-hmm. The third perception that I actually live on, I've already said the first two, is leave people better than you found them. You always leave people better than you found them. And that ties into the comment you made about, maybe on that plane I talked to somebody, I said something, I'm always great to the loving to the people that service me on the plane. I'm just, I have such an appreciation for what they do, and I know that a lot of people don't see them as being an important person on the plane, the flight attendants that take care of you on the plane, that are there to do all the various things that flight attendants do. I have a high regard for them, not only because my second wife was in the business. However, I saw it from a different side, and I always used to hear about the complaints and the stories and the stuff that they had to absorb with a smile. The mm-hmm. conversations, the innuendos, and the stuff they had to absorb with a smile on their face and keep moving, right? And to somebody, again, you can be the opposite, right? You can be the opposite of what people expect. And they're so appreciative. They're so grateful. And they're much more loving. And it's just, it makes the entire experience that much better for you and everybody else. It's not just you. It's everyone they come in contact with, you know. If that smile is real and blazing with love, because they've received some love that they know they're giving out, they received it right back to them. It's an appreciation. It's a boomerang. Hey, this thing came right back to me. It's a validation for them, right? And people, in my view, should receive validation when they're living from love. We're here as a source of love, everybody, to give them that love right back. It is kind of a mission, you know, but it's a lot of fun. That's the way, to me, that's fun living. That's how I enjoy my day. No matter what I do, where I go, people, we've said this before, like to know that others know that they're there. Everyone is important in life. Everybody, when you're passing somebody on the street who's doing something, letting them know, wishing them a great day. They're not invisible. They're doing their work. They're doing what they're doing. However, everybody loves to know that they can be seen, that they're seen by someone. You know, it's just a validation of their own efforts, of their own thinking as well. And you can make somebody's day in a heartbeat. You just don't know it. You don't have to stand around and wait for them to say thank you either. You just give them the love and keep moving.
I agree.
Give them the love and keep moving.
Agree.
Wonderful.
And
life is wonderful.
It's a good reminder. I was going to say it's a good reminder for yourself, too. When you have those waves come up, you don't have to solve your entire future today at that next moment. As you said, you have compassion for yourself. You have compassion for that other person. But you can also, in that moment, have compassion for yourself. How many people say, oh, my God, I can't believe I was so stupid. Like, what a stupid thing for me to do. That's not coming from a place of love. So instead, okay, I made an error. How can I course correct? What's the next loving thing I can do right now? You take that one wave at a time approach, and that's how I believe you start to remain that source of love, and no matter what the difficulty is. And I think oftentimes when we have uncertainty, we internalize it, and we're, something's wrong with me. Not knowing does not mean that there is anything wrong with you. Sometimes that transition from one place to another is just that you are evolving and that you are growing. I know you and I speak about it all the time, but we really need to speak to ourselves the way love would. And I think that's when we're overwhelmed, we forget that. So if we just take a step back, what would love say to me right now? What would kindness sound like here? How can I be kind to myself in this situation? We've all been in a place, it's kind of like being, when I was in Japan and I went into the subway system, and there's many, many layers. And it's very easy to navigate, generally speaking, in a country where the characters are the same as in the English language. You can generally sort of figure it out. Germany, it's Italy, in most of the places. But when the characters are different, it's like being on totally other planet. And so sometimes it's just being compassionate, taking a minute. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed. If you need to go outside for a minute, walk around, go up a level, come back down. Look for somebody that may be able to help you navigate it. Put your hand on your heart, letting yourself know you're safe in this moment. And, just know that you'll find that next wave that'll come peacefully into shore. I think that's how we are a source of love, not only for other people, but to ourselves, not allowing ourselves to get into that panic. Because I think I'm listening to a really wonderful book by Dr. Joe Dispenza right now about New You, New Life. And he speaks about that, how our brain becomes so used to these emotions, and it's almost like an addiction. We become very, very addicted to it. So we're seeking circumstances that will feed that, even though we don't really prefer that, that's what we keep attracting and bringing more and more in. So by going into that heart space and a coherent heart, it's just sort of like that wave. It goes up, it goes down very gently, it goes back up. And when we're in that coherent space, we're attracting things that really do bring that peace and that love. And one of the best ways to drop into heart coherence is by thinking about something you're grateful for or something that you love. And so it's a fantastic way to emit that frequency and really be that source of love, not only for other people, but for yourself as well.
Yes, love it. I think all of it. That is fantastic. Yes, and it is a matter of just changing the way that we approach our lives, approach every moment of the day. You know, we think, I know for me and for you, it comes a lot easier because we've been practicing for years, for decades. To someone who's newly alert and aware to their own sovereignty, to their own to self-love and what it means to love yourself and be a source of love, to someone who's experiencing this for the first time and is around people who haven't quite gotten there yet, it can be a little bit of a challenge because you're thinking differently, and as a result of thinking differently, you're experiencing different things in your life and different people, different circumstances. You're getting a whole new reflection from the mirror of your life because now you're practicing that self-love. You're being kind to yourself and less judgmental, and you're caring for yourself, respecting yourself, aligning your thoughts with all of those things, those positive high-frequency elements. And your life is going to be mirroring back two things. It's going to be, for a while, it's going to be mirroring back the people who now are saying, what the heck is going on with you? You know, who don't deal with change very well. And then you have the new people that come into your life that resonate completely and understand exactly what you're doing and what you're thinking. And this crossing over to a new reflection can be a little bit of a challenge. But my simple statement is, you're right where you're supposed to be. You're always right where you're supposed to be. And just let it happen. Let go. You let go of things that no longer resonate with you, because new things that do resonate with you, that reflect back exactly who you're evolving into, are going to continue to occur. And I think it was somebody I heard for the umpteenth time today, the new earth, older earth concept and what that means. And the person who was saying it wasn't necessarily as well versed as some of the other people who've been talking about it, but it's that really what I just described right there is simply old earth, new earth. It's just a shift in energies from you that, as a result, create the same energies, of love. If you're loving to yourself and respecting yourself, that you're going to become a source of love, and that source of love is going to reflect back to you, and what you're resonating, and that is your version of New Earth, because everything's going to align with that energy that you're focused and putting out. Simply said, that's it. So it doesn't mean that you're going to step off this planet to a different planet, or you'll step into a different timeline with regard to a different reality that you're creating for yourself, a loving reality, the reality that will resonate what you're resonating. So people who are in a negative timeline, negative state of being, will have reflected back to them that negativity. When they're egoic and greedy and fearful and angry, worried, living in a fight or flight situation, they're going to be reflecting back people who will validate that for them. And I would listen. I'm on the love side. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, Michael, I've re-listened to our shows, and one of the things that you have brought up many times, and it really has reminded me and impacted me, and I want to say thank you for it, is the fact that the teacher said find something to love on, no matter what it is, and how that small act, that small practice has really transformed your life. And I think that if you have a cup of coffee in the morning, love that cup of coffee and really savor it and enjoy all of the nuances of that time that you're taking to enjoy that cup of coffee, whether it's you're having it with the sunrise or you're listening to it with a song, or you're sitting in a coffee shop and you're enjoying a moment of connection with another human being. I think, it's one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves during this time of uncertainty is that permission to allow that love and that joy to exist alongside that uncertainty, not after it, but alongside of it. And I keep thinking about what the teacher said. I think it was on the last episode we did with Carol Collins. And if love is where you're wanting to be and joy is what you're wanting to experience, it is that way that we are staying connected and really truly remembering who we are and that love and that joy, while life is unfolding. And I think it's sort of an invitation that we receive when change is afoot. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be controlled. It's an invitation to be like that ocean, to move and soften and trust and rise and fall and really experience. And as you always have reminded me, find something to love on. You are always worthy. You're being guided. You're being held. You're not alone. It's something that can be embraced. And when you are that source of love, I think that's how we really embrace and live our lives fully. It's just, so thank you for that reminder on the last few episodes, because it's reminded me that whenever I have a challenge, to find something to love on. It is such a wonderful teaching, and it is so easy to do.
You're so welcome. We have to remind ourselves of that all the time. Find something to love on. When things aren't exactly as planned, find something to love on in that situation. And the more we can do that, the more we will continue to be a source of love. As we started, this show is about, this particular episode is about how do we do that? How do we maintain ourselves as a source of love? And it's how we deal with the opposite of that. That's how we maintain source of love, by dealing with the opposite of love when we experience it with love as well. We have to approach the opposite of love in any situation or circumstances that we're in. We have to do that from love, and that's how we maintain it. When we drop to lower frequencies of getting angry and blaming and making ourselves out to be a victim in the whole 9 yards, that obviously is the opposite of love. And it's what the situation is going to turn into, is the opposite of love. That will resonate right back to us. It's not going to make us feel good. It's not aligned with the authentic person we are, the authentic soul. And we are literally here to remember who we are, who the authentic us is, right? That's what we're here to do, to remember and rediscover who we really are. We come from love. We come from a depth of love that we could never possibly understand, and our brains could never comprehend. And because it's 100% unconditional, flowing through us, every cell in our body is of our being, of our soul. Every bit of light that we emanate is based on love only, not anything else. And in this life, we have a personality. Like I said, we got an ego. We've got other people's personalities and egos. We have to work together, find a way to work together. And the easiest way and smoothest way to work together is to both have a platform of foundation of love to work from. That's the best way I can describe it. And that's when things work out.
So eloquent and so beautifully said, Michael. Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who make the time to join us on this journey of discovery. My wish for all of you is that you may ride the waves gently and trust that no matter what comes your way, that whatever is unfolding in the midst of change, you can be that source of peace, kindness, and, of course, love. So until next time, stay loving and, of course, peace out. Thank you.
Cheers.